obviously temperatures have a large impact on corn yield, but not necessarily in the way that we think that they might, because when we're out in the cornfield, it's usually during the daytime, and there's also a lot that goes on at night in relationship to how that plant utilizes utilizes that energy and responds to the environment. And if you look at Mississippi's temperatures during the growing season, both daytime and nighttime growing conditions, during the 30-day period after tasseling, nighttime temperatures are a lot more important than daytime temperatures in terms of how that plant utilizes energy. It increases the respiration rate, and that's something that we really can't manage around. Our nighttime temperatures last year were about 5 to 6 degrees below what they had been the previous 2 years. That was a huge factor in terms of what the corn yield capability was. Of course, the water relations during the growing season, particularly for the dryland growers, is extremely important, but we were about a degree below normal last year. Our nighttime temperatures for that 30-day period following tasseling averaged about 68 degrees. In the last 2 years, they've been averaging up around 74 to 75. So that was a huge advantage for us last year. Now, in terms of how that related to last year as well, the other significant factor that we had that was a big advantage for us was our heat unit accumulation, as represented by the maroon bar right here, was way ahead of normal compared to what it normally is, which is represented by the white bar. And most of that came very early in the season, particularly during the month of March and April. Normally we have about 120 growing degree days during the month of March. To put that in perspective, it takes corn normally somewhere around 125 growing degree days, and that can range to actually emerge. And then it takes about 1,450 growing degree days to get to tasseling, 2,900 growing degree days to get to physiological maturity. We had corn reaching tasseling, just as it's represented here on the chart, sometime in shortly after the 10th of May in some of the early planted corn. And the key thing that I wanted to point out was that I know there's a lot of excitement about the corn crop this year. The growers in the South Delta and the southern counties that planted early last year saw a huge response to planting date, but actually realizing the physiological advantages that happened last year are pretty unlikely. So what I wanted to go over was just simply what the recommendations are for early planting date. Soil temperature is really the key thing there. We always key on soil moisture, and that's usually the thing that as soon as it gets dry enough to plant, and it's after March 1, we go to the field. But soil temperature determines the germination and emergence rate of those young corn plants, and actually the growth of those young corn plants. So minimum soil temperature for germination and early growth is 50 degrees. We want that to be up around 55 in order to get the corn plants up within 2 weeks. And that emergence uniformity and that early vigorous growth is extremely important, as I'll show later on. But that would be the key thing that I always recommend in terms of determining optimum planting date. We don't know what kind of conditions we'll have towards the end of this month and early March, but we need to be carrying a soil thermometer in the truck and checking the soil temperature first thing in the morning to determine what kind of environment we have, how favorable it will be for planting corn. The other thing that I wanted to mention is we do have a 24C label. A few things that I wanted to point out about it. First of all, it's a stomach irritant. It won't actually repel birds, but when they go down and dig up that seed and try to ingest it, they will get sick basically, and if they're smart, they'll avoid it in the future. It gives off a fluorescence, I guess, that is a negative tone for birds, so it works in those two different ways. It is an effective product. It does have some limitations though, because the birds actually have to ingest it. They can pull up that plant, they can go down. A lot of times in this case, they dug all the way down to the seed, flipped over all that soil, dug the plant up, and went down there, found the seed, and saw that it was treated with the product and left it alone. Didn't do a whole lot of good because they'd already boogered up the plant, flipped around all that soil and everything. But it is a product out there that we now have a lot better utilization of, or we hopefully can get into the market chain and get it to our products, get it to our customers sooner this year. As you see, it is available in 2 different formulations, both a dry formulation, which we've used nearly exclusively thus far in Mississippi. The company that manufactures it also has a liquid formulation that they actually prefer in terms of performance. They know that that's a product that basically would be commercially treated onto the seed. You'll get better coverage on the seed as opposed to, any farmhand or whatever out there mixing it up in the hopper box when they're trying to get a bunch of acres planted that day. So they think that they'll have more uniform delivery and adherence during the planting process with the liquid formulation, and of course better performance overall with that liquid formulation. So just investigate those options and know that they are out there. If you have any questions about that, I'll be happy to try to address them.